When you look at the AI sector landscape more broadly, it is OpenAI's early dominance, being challenged increasingly by Gal Payment, drawing investor interest at an evaluation of $800 billion or higher. They're on track to be, or maybe already are, the most valuable startup in the world. Amplifying the buzz is Anthropic's newest model, Mythos, a small number of companies outside of Anthropic have access to, and on a limited basis. This exclusive release is called Project Glasswing, and it features a who's who of Silicon Valley. We know that Apple, Google, Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike, the Linux Foundation, Amazon is part of this Glasswing project, which is a highly unusual arrangement. These are fierce competitors trying to get the best model out there. And Anthropic is not only showing them some IP that hasn't been released yet, they're letting their competitors potentially criticize some of the work they did. The weird launch has generated tons of publicity, and there are already reports of unauthorized users accessing the model. This is just terrible basic cybersecurity 101 that was overlooked here. People keep talking about this theoretical threat AI poses to cybersecurity. And what the Mythos has shown is that threat is real. There's a major concern that if this ends up in the wrong hands, it could basically lead to some of the greater issues cyber threats humanity has ever dealt with, carrying huge potential for chaos and high stakes. So high is tech's era of move fast and break things finally. Over what Bloomberg has learned that the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent sent a message to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, summoning Wall Street leaders to an urgent meeting over concerns about the latest AI model from Anthropic is going to bring an era of higher cyber risk. Even though the talks were of course private, part of the meeting was, hey banks, better start testing this thing now, before it's already too late. The US banking sector is clearly super crucial to the US economy and the global economy. For millions of dollars flow through these banks' pipes every single day. The threat Mythos creates a two-part danger. It can spot vulnerabilities in almost every web browser and every computer system it connects to. So far tested on that, could be finding issues in a lot of the web services we hassle thing. Use payment services, operating systems like on iPhones and Android. So you're talking bugs, potential holes in infrastructure that these banks might have been sitting on for years or decades. Maybe you haven't fixed vulnerabilities that could be exploited by outside hackers, but Mythos doesn't just find bugs, it knows how to exploit them. You'd basically need to be able to steer it a little bit. But mostly it could independently go out and locate bugs and exploits and make a plan on how to actually take action on them and potentially cause some damage to the product that it found the flaw. It lowers the playing field in terms of the skill set you need, the time it takes. You could do this on a massive scale, and the cost you've seen historically that nation states might spend years and a massive amount of financial investment in building a military hacker army of extremely experienced great coders with access to FEEC. Something like this cuts out the need for that entirely. And it's not just nation state hackers either. It's financial career criminals too, these criminal gangs that run all over the globe. The risks don't stop in the US. We've also seen the central banks of Canada and the UK get companies together to discuss Mythos and the dangers it brings. CEOs in the UK over the last week have been engaging with me expressing significant fear about dangerous AI. And its consequences have been with us for decades and are ubiquitous in popular culture. I'll be back. But setting sci-fi aside, the ethics of how to deploy AI is rapidly becoming the loudest debate in the Bacada. The industry, and it's central to Anthropic's founding. A group of early OpenAI employees departed to launch Anthropic with the goal of building more advanced AI systems but in a safer and more responsible way. It's really been their brand throughout their history. The company's FO has led to a showdown with the Pentagon, contracted with Anthropic in July of 2025. Anthropic is really pushing back on two key Points one to have more defined guardrails so AI isn't used to help with mass surveillance. And so the other being AI used to basically use autonomous weapons for the Pentagon. The argument is that no private company should basically just messing with what the Defense Department handles. No private company ought to be dictating how the Defense Department and armed forces use technology on the battlefield. Anthropic is taking the Pentagon to court over the Pentagon's choice to label a supply chain risk as a very rare designation, typically meant for foreign opponents. So while the Department of Defense tries to blacklist Anthropic, Treasury and White House are pushing to expand access. All of a sudden, like some pieces of the Trump administration are starting to realize they likely have to work with. At the end of the day, there's really no regulatory framework for AI. A private company makes a choice seemingly on its own to keep its model back from wider release. But nobody told it to do that. Probably the ultimate indictment of the current state of the regulatory framework, at least in the US. But in the long run, if you're looking to build AI dominance globally, you might not want to shut down the company that's increasingly looking like it's leading the charge in AI work in the US. A flip side to all the caution around Mythos is the idea that hamstringing its rollout actually amounts to a brilliant marketing campaign. There's no chance they built an AI so powerful it can't release root just so they fall for doom marketing that helps them raise capital. And it gets folks pretty pumped with me. Those, I think you're seeing a company that's generally concerned about the abilities of its models. At the same time, is it in some way self-serving to show the world we've built something incredibly powerful? But we just don't want you to get it if it's bait. Then looking at it from a Wall Street perspective, it's been taken, take a look at the S&P 500. And the Nasdaq Bloomberg index tracking AI companies is still beating the market, before you factor in AI darlings like Anthropic. And OpenAI have even gone public there. Does appear to be a race to go public right now in the AI sector. The latest reporting we have indicates that Anthropic could go public as soon as October. OpenAI is also widely expected to, aiming to pursue a public offering this year. And Elon Musk's XAI could beat them both to the punch after merging with SpaceX, which is scheduled to go public as soon as June, but the stir on Wall Street adds pressure to prove profitability. OpenAI started out targeting consumers. OpenAI's ChatGPT now has over 900 million weekly users, rivaling the reach of many major social platforms. Networks. Anthropic went a different way since its main focus was enterprise customers. This takes us back to that meeting with the banks, which have already spent a lot on their technology. And that's one of the reasons companies like Anthropic and OpenAI want to partner with them already, right? These companies are already pouring serious money into their own internal AI tech, but also in the contracts that they're signing with outside vendors, like Anthropic spending on cybersecurity just keeps growing and expenditures are expected to reach $300 billion by 2030. Where Anthropic, what OpenAI have really done well in recent months is making tools that automate the writing process and debugging code. Now Anthropic, OpenAI, and other privately held firms are trying to sort of show that their tech isn't not just handy for software developers, but actually super useful for scientists, financial firms, and creatives. That's still being worked on. The same tech that could one day spark a scientific breakthrough will sometimes struggle with basic math. Cybersecurity has become another cool and key bear. Use case here, but it's kind of a spin-off of coding. So with Mythos, they're riding that hype in their own words. The very capabilities that made AI models dangerous in the wrong hands make them invaluable for finding and fixing bugs in important software. The Mythos story involves fighting fire with fire, which opens the door to chaos. It also promises a stronger rebuild while opening up a lucrative revenue stream in the meantime. So far, the main talk about AI has been what's going to happen to our jobs. because so much of this tech has been to streamline back office processes, find efficiencies, but now the worries are about more than job security, they're about system safety and security safety. And that steps this up to a whole